I'm pleased to report that today the United States has the strongest economy, the strongest borders, the strongest military, the strongest friendships, and the strongest spirit of any nation.
Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Thursday, November the 6th, 2025. President Trump speaking at the American Business Forum in Miami Wednesday.
The reckless Democrat shutdown, virtually every Democrat in Congress has voted to hold the American people hostage.
We will hear more about the government shutdown, now the longest shutdown in U.S. history, the SCOTUS hearing on tariffs, and today's big event at the White House. But in Miami, where a lot of business people and residents are from New York, the president also spoke about the New York City mayoral election.
After last night's results, the decision facing all Americans could not be more clear. We have a choice between communism and common sense.
Let's start it off with Rob Schmidt in New York City.
Election hangover for most of us. We hit the streets of Manhattan, though, blue Manhattan, to get reaction to the big win from Mamdani. Take a look.
Unbelievably excited. I think it's incredible.
I'm very happy. I think good things are going to happen.
His stance on affordability, his stance on universal child care. He just brings a fresh set of ideas. He brings, the youth.
Everybody's excited about all these grandiose ideas that have all been tried many, many times before.
Yeah. I don't want to say that word liberal people. No, I'm not liberal, but I'm for the honesty.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the safety, concerned about socialism coming to this country.
Do you see how you and I are making completely different arguments? Okay. You're saying struggling people should be mad at struggling people, and I'm saying struggling people are looking for relief. Yes, of course I am.
Oh my God, what's happening? Are those people don't have at all education?
If you listen to anything he said over the past year, he's not defunding the police.
I mean, he said it a lot in the past.
That sounds nice. It sounds nice to give everybody free things, but in reality, none of these things actually work.
I'm very, very excited for Mayor Mamdani. I'm very excited.
Rob Schmidt on the streets of Manhattan. And I hope he asked that woman to contact him in a year or two to let him know how excited she is then, right? Next up, Carl Higbie, host of Frontline on Newsmax, had a message for Democrats and Republicans.
Some far-left trans-loving lunatic influencer shot a conservative icon 2 months ago, okay? Teachers, government employees, tons of other liberals, many of which didn't have a job before, a lot of which don't have a job now, celebrated his death publicly, then went out and held mass protests in nearly every city where some, not all, but a lot advocated for more violence against conservatives, while simultaneously lecturing me about Trump's rhetoric. Pound sand. Oh, but then Democrats also overwhelmingly just elected a dude for Attorney General. Let me say that again. Attorney General as the highest law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia, who is widely known before the election for wanting to shoot his political opponent and watch his kids die in their mother's arms. Sweet. I never want to be lectured ever again about any modicum of any type of decorum from another Democrat as long as I live. There is no moral fiber on the left at all. And that includes anyone who voted for them, by the way. Yep, generalization right there. Take it. And the big ticket item this morning that Republicans, or at least some, they're sitting there scratching their head, I wonder how this happened. Yeah, how did a Virginia elect a liberal white woman over a black female Marine that has upheld every constitutional value? How did the former governor of New York lose to a 34-year-old socialist Muslim from Uganda that has never held a real job and didn't even show up to the previously elected one he had either? How did Jack Ciattarelli lose to a woman that supported a system that drove up the price of electricity to one of the highest in the nations, raised taxes, and after, what did she have, $7 million of suspicious stock trades, and still got elected by the party that's screaming, eat the rich? Well, hey, if you don't know, maybe you should step aside from the leadership of the Republican Party forever. There's the door. Because I'll tell you how it happened, because Democrats for the last 30 years have been indoctrinating our schools, teaching kids that socialism is good and all Republican values are terrible, to such an extent that when people like me went and pounded on the podium at Board of Ed meetings, we were put on domestic terror watch lists. I have been warning about this for 15 years, that this is the new battleground, and I've been told by my own people in the Republican, oh, Carl, tone it down. No, shut up. This is how we got here.
That is Carl Higbie, host of the very popular Frontline, 6 p.m. Eastern. A few weeks ago, and I mentioned this at the time, Carl's show, Frontline, had higher ratings that week than all of CNN's prime time combined. As surprising and as difficult to believe the Zohran Mamdani story is in New York, I think maybe more amazing and even speaks more to the times that a candidate who sent several texts about putting bullets in the head of a Republican and wrote about watching their kids die was not only not immediately disqualified from the race, but actually went on to win the race. Slate.com is one of the best headlines I've seen. Turns out you can fantasize about your colleagues' kids getting shot and still win the election. That's their headline. And they go on to say how at any other time in history, this would have been a huge deal and a campaign ender, but not in the current environment. If you're in Virginia or you know anything about the races in Virginia, the Republicans there actually considered removing their lieutenant governor candidate, John Reed, over some sexually explicit photos he allegedly had years ago. But the Democrats, they doubled down on the guy that wants to kill people and their children. As Carl mentioned, it was only 2 months ago that Charlie Kirk was murdered. We had a politician and her spouse murdered. And in the last election, the Republican presidential nominee was nearly assassinated. Innocent civilians at that rally were killed. And we're electing a guy who is texting about killing a political rival and their family. And it's not only the Democrats, or the Demerats, as my friend Rick Scott says. You didn't hear much about it from the lamestream media either. Complicit again. Yesterday, the Supreme Court, as I mentioned, heard arguments in a case challenging the president's tariffs. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick spoke about it with Rob Schmidt.
Some conservative justices actually sounded skeptical at points today when looking at how much power the president has on tariffs. Here was Neil Gorsuch.
You emphasize that Congress can always take back its powers. You mentioned that a couple of times. But don't we have a serious retrieval problem here? Every president will sign a law that gives him more authority. Congress can't take that back without a supermajority. And even then, it's going to be veto-proof. What president's ever going to give that power back?
All right, the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was at the Supreme Court to watch the discussion today and joins us now. Sir, good to have you back on. What did you see today? What do you think? How do you think they're leaning?
Well, I think they're leaning toward the president. So what happened is General Sauer, our Solicitor General, was out first, and the justices were tough. Let's say they were asking them tough questions. But when the other side got up, wow, it was very, very strong. And so I left very upbeat and very positive. And I think these justices are going to come down in favor of the president's powers, because he's stopping the emergency of what's happened to trade against the United States of America. Everybody knows it, and some of those discussions were really, really interesting, and that's why it's fun to be on the show to sort of talk about exactly what some of these justices said.
You know, there was so much doom and gloom when you went down the tariff road. Everybody said this was going to be just so damning for the economy. The Atlanta Fed, and I think we have a graphic to show here, is indicating they think third quarter GDP is going to be at around 4%. That's a big number. That's a very healthy, robust number for the economy. Do you think that plays into the minds at all? If the Supreme Court's looking at this, if they saw an economy that was crashing, if they saw, indications that tariffs were really doing damage, I feel like that might impact their vote. They're not seeing that, though.
Of course, if the stock market was going, I mean, which way is the stock market going? Up, up, up. Which way is the economy going? 3.8 last quarter, estimates of 4.4% this quarter. I mean, the economy is on fire because of Donald Trump's economy is one that says tariffs, come on, build in America. The president's been saying north of $15 trillion coming to build in America. That's going to grow our economy more than 4%. It could grow our economy more than 5%. I mean,
Yeah.
These are numbers no one's ever thought are possible for America, and it's driven by Donald Trump's trade and tariff agenda.
If this doesn't go your way, do you guys have workarounds to deal with this so that you don't lose, I think the foothold that you have with these tariffs? Are there ways to do this if the Supreme Court comes down on you the wrong way?
Sure. One of the things they talked about is Section 232, which was 9-0 at the Supreme Court. And that also is about tariffs. So there are plenty of tariff rules that the president has no matter what. But the answer is these judges are going to side with Donald Trump. I'll give you an example. That Justice Kavanaugh said, imagine a meeting in the Oval Office where they have the power, because the other side agreed that the president has the power under this IEEPA rule. They admitted that he could just cut off trade to a country. So he says, can you imagine a meeting in the Oval Office where they say to Mr. President, you can cut off trade to this country?
Yeah.
And then the president's, well, that's too much. Let's do something less. And they say, no, Mr. President, you can't do less. You either have to, blow them up with trade and have a full embargo or nothing. It just doesn't make any sense. The concept is you can always use a weaker power to get weaker measures. That's very sensible. And that is what the judges are going to agree, that if he can cut off trade, he surely can set a tariff.
If the president has the authority to cut trade, he certainly can set a tariff. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on Newsmax. So the government shutdown is now the longest in U.S. history. President Trump again calling on Senate Republicans to change the rules and eliminate the filibuster so they can bypass Democrats and pass the CR and then get some stuff done.
Republicans, you will rue the day that you didn't terminate the filibuster. Be tough, be smart, and win.
This is Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson on Newsmax from Capitol Hill.
You're not only calling for an end to this standoff, you've actually proposed a bill. It's called the Eliminate Shutdowns Act. Makes a lot of sense. It would end shutdowns for good. You'd think you'd get bipartisan support on that right now. What came, meanwhile, pivoting a bit, of today's meeting with the president at the White House? Anything?
Well, first of all, I think the president made a very convincing case that Democrats, when they retain the majority in the Senate, that'll happen someday, the first thing they do is they will end the filibuster. They're dedicated to it. They purged the couple senators that voted against ending the filibuster when they did have the majority. So it's going to happen. When they do it, they will do it to maintain their power. Add new senators from Democrat states or districts. They'll pack the Supreme Court. So what the president is saying is we're not going to get any cooperation from the Democrats. I mean, you can see they're shutting down. They've taken their own family member hostage. We've been trying to free that hostage. They're not willing to do it. They're brazen. So they're not going to do anything to help Republicans pass legislation for the benefit of the American people. So he's saying the only way we can do that is end the filibuster, and I'm in 100% agreement. I actually have supported the filibuster in the past, but when the Democrats showed us their hand, it's just obvious. I think everybody in that room realizes when the Democrats get the majority, they will end the filibuster. So we're probably better off doing it now for the benefit of the American people, as opposed to what the Democrats will do is they'll use it to maintain and really solidify their power for all time.
So to be clear, Senator, the headline out of that meeting at the White House this morning, you feel like the Senate's going to go ahead and follow the president's direction, request to end the filibuster. You think that's happening now? That's moving forward?
I can't speak for my colleagues. I was supportive in the meeting. I spoke to the president yesterday in terms of developing, basically a strategy. This is what the agenda would be. These are the highly popular pieces of legislation the American people would support. For example, like the Eliminate Shutdown Act. If you ran a referendum on that in America, it would be wildly popular. But Democrats are opposed to it, and unfortunately, the uniparty appropriators are also opposed to it. Apparently, they don't mind using government employees, the American population, as pawns in their maintenance of their power to pass spending bills that we can't afford. So, again, I think the American people want an end to these shutdowns for all time. That's what my Eliminate Shutdown Act would do.
What happens if the filibuster is ended, Senator, and the Republicans lose control of the Senate?
It's exactly what would happen when we lose control of the Senate. Democrats will nuke the filibuster. They'll add Senate seats from Democrat districts. They'll pack the Supreme Court. They will use their power to maintain power.
Eventually, when the Democrats regain control of the Senate, they will end the filibuster anyway, says Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson, a member of the Senate Budget Committee and the Senate Homeland Security and Finance Committee on Newsmax. Senate Leader John Thune, however, says even if they want to do it, end the filibuster, he doesn't think they'll get the votes to do it. Meanwhile, delays continuing at airports across the country due to the shutdown, due to air traffic controllers and TSA workers who are not getting paid, not coming to work. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says the government is going to begin reducing flights tomorrow, Friday, at some of the country's busiest airports due to safety concerns, which is obviously very concerning. And let's wrap it up with this segment from Wake Up America.
Well, turning now to this morning's Newsmax crime report, we are learning new details about an alleged terrorist plot that federal agents say stopped it just in the nick of time.
Yeah, so 2 men are now in custody accused of planning to strike nightclubs and bars across Metro Detroit on Halloween weekend. Newsmax crime correspondent Jason Matera has the disturbing details for us this morning. Good morning, Jason.
Hey, good morning, Mark and Charlotte. So this all broke Friday morning right before trick-or-treating began when Kash Patel announced that authorities had disrupted a potential Islamic terrorist attack. Now the feds have released the full 73-page criminal complaint, and it lays out just how close we came to seeing a mass casualty event on one of the busiest nights of the year.
Buying the amount of ammunition that they did, doesn't sound like they're going for a weekend of hunting.
On October 31st, the FBI arrested Muhammad Ali and Majed Mahmoud of Dearborn, Michigan. Federal officials say the pair, along with 3 unnamed individuals, were plotting a Halloween bloodbath on behalf of ISIS. The targets allegedly clubs and discos, according to an unsealed criminal complaint.
We always say that there's a bunch of legs to the stool. The first is obviously the motivation. Second is the access to weapons. And then the third is targeting and actually intending to go forward. So these individuals looked like they fit all those profiles.
The alleged wannabe jihadists apparently even mapped out a daily schedule to train for their attack. 5:30 a.m., Quran study. 6:30 a.m., intense running and foot exercises. 8 a.m., handling weapons. And 11 a.m., weapons exercises. And those exercises weren't imaginary. Authorities say Ali and Mahmoud were caught on surveillance at a local gun range, firing off rounds as part of their purported prep work. Their intent, mass casualties. Investigators say Ali and an unidentified juvenile drew inspiration from the 2015 Paris massacre, where ISIS militants killed more than 130 people and wounded over 400 others in coordinated attacks. When agents moved in, they allegedly uncovered a stockpile of firearms, tactical gear, dozens of magazines, and 1,600 rounds of ammunition. Now, Homeland Security experts say the biggest unknown is whether this cell ends with Ali and Mahmoud or whether it begins with them.
That's really the concern here, is how broad is this effort? Because that's always the fear. You take out one threat and another emerges.
Newsmax crime reporter Jason Matera on Wake Up America. The 2 19-year-old suspects are from New Jersey. This is U.S. Attorney Alina Habba of New Jersey.
The first suspect is charged with conspiring to provide material support to a designated terrorist organization. The second suspect is charged with transmitting violent, anti-Semitic threats across the internet to individuals in the state of New Jersey and beyond. Under President Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi's leadership, protecting the homeland from radical Islamic terrorism and violent extremism is one of the Justice Department's highest priorities.
These 2 geniuses texted all their plans and emailed their plans to each other. Good to hear from Alina Habba again, and great work by all those involved. Evil does walk among us every day, my friend. Pay attention out there. Back at the open, I also mentioned today's events at the White House. President Trump is hosting the leaders of 5 Central Asian nations at the White House today. The group, including countries like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, known as C5+1. It's sort of a summit, which refers to the 5 Central Asian countries, and the U.S. is the +1. You'll see coverage of this throughout the day on Newsmax. There will be meetings and then a dinner, and the president is scheduled to make some sort of an announcement before this all gets started, according to the White House calendar. On Wall Street, stocks opened slightly higher this morning. Disappointing earnings news from Papa John's, and CarMax shares are also lower after its CEO stepped down. Be sure to keep up with all of today's news and breaking developments on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. Also get signed up for breaking news alerts with the Newsmax app. All right, I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for checking out the Newsmax Daily Podcast. Hope you enjoy it. Radio_Marino on X. Comments, complaints, hellos, always welcome. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's Friday Eve. And, by the way, National Nachos Day. Say less. So eat some nachos, pay attention, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.